My website is www.glasssouls.com. Okay. I also do I paint glass. I've been doing that for almost 10 years. I paint people on glass, and I also paint abstracts on glass. I started out as I started out as a realistic painter when I was 3, doing oils on canvas that the teacher would set up with little flowers and stuff. And then I took it all through. Elementary school and high school, and then I majored in it when I started going to college for 2 years, and then I transferred to UC Berkeley, and I couldn't use any of my credits from the art school that I had gone to at New College because it's a 60 school and you only get, you don't get grades. So they wouldn't accept all my basic art classes. So instead I ended up getting a degree in sociology because you only needed about 6 sociology classes and the rest you could take everything else.
Yeah.
So I took a lot of film courses, which I loved, and I started making films there. And then I took wonderful classes in almost everything, and it was an excellent school, and I loved Berkeley and had a great time there, and I lived with 5 men for a year and a half. And that was a trip because I had done life drawing, with nude models. And one of the guys that came into the house while I was there was a vet, and he got turned on because I put those up.
That's so funny. How did you end up in
so
Miami?
He got really mad at me, and I had to take them all down. I was born in Miami, but my mom was from Detroit, and she grew up and became a ballerina. She left home from Detroit at 16 and went to New York with a scholarship from the School of American Ballet. And she studied with a very famous choreographer named George Balanchine, and she got into his first company. She was only 4'9", but she was a little powerhouse. And she demonstrated all the pieces. When Balanchine couldn't remember what he choreographed, she would remember everything and demonstrate it to the rest of the company.
That's awesome.
So she's in a couple of books, and I started studying ballet with her when I was 3. And then I studied ballet also nonstop throughout most of my life, and I still dance a lot, although I'm not formally in classes, but I've done a lot of yoga and a lot of aerobics and a lot of jazzercise and a million, weightlifting and running, and I love to dance. So, but anyway, my mom moved here because her mother, they were living in New York. My mom had a school of dance in New York for over 18 years that was very successful, and when it was 2 different studio spaces, and she had another teacher teaching at one, but that woman wanted to move out. So that's how she met my dad, because my dad taught acting. He was a founding member of the Actors Studio in New York, and he grew up in a little town called LaSalle, Illinois, and he went to University of Wisconsin at Madison for a year. And I don't think my dad finished his degree, but then he went to New York and started teaching and became successful. And he wanted to rent out a studio space, and he saw my mother's ad. So it became the Ann Wayne and Al Sachs School of Dance and Drama. And then they lived in New York. My brother was born in New York, but they had like a 5-story walk-up. And my dad got an offer to teach school in Toronto, to open his own acting school, which would have been a good gig, but they were there for like 8 months and my mom froze. So in the meantime, her mother was dying and her mom had moved to Miami. So she came back to Miami, and after her mom died, I was born there. She was pregnant with me. And I got named after my grandmother, who I never met. And then we grew up here, but we went back to New York a lot because I had relatives there. And eventually we had a house in a place called Rhinebeck, upstate New York. So on and off I grew up in New York, and then I went to undergrad, like I said, at New College in Sarasota, Florida. And grad school, I finished my graduate degree at Berkeley, and then I worked for almost 8 years as a paralegal, legal secretary. I was trial consultant at one firm, and that was interesting work. And then I got my own job as a media consultant for a research institute on aging. So I did that for a year and a half, and then I decided I was going to apply back to grad school. So I applied to 3 schools, and I got in everywhere with a scholarship. But I visited them all, and I loved Ann Arbor, and I loved Austin. But it seemed like Boston University you could take the most mix the most classes in all the different media.
Right.
So my graduate degree ended up being in journalism, but I took a huge amount of film, 16 millimeter, and I did animation. I painted on frames with watercolor, and was still doing my art. At that point, I was doing abstract watercolor and some mixed media on top of that. I hadn't worked with glass at all. So anyway, I finished that degree in 1990, and I came back to Miami because my mom was getting older, and lived here. Well, I was in Boston 3 years, and then I moved back here, and then she died in 2002, and I had already started the bottles and had started to sell them pretty successfully for like a year. And in the meantime, I was a writer for the Sun Post newspaper and did interviews on film and the arts. And did that for about 2.5 years for free, and then I had enough clips and I quit. So I still am involved with writing and wouldn't mind teaching a class an autobiographical essay. But I tend to I do poetry. I'm working on a poetry CD, and I do a little bit of singing sometimes, and writing lyrics, and I'm going to work until the CD is done with a recording engineer.
Awesome.
And yeah, my life is going well, except finances are tough when you're an artist, as I'm sure.
Of course, yes.
So,
Which is why I work at Apple.
yes. Which is, I'm lucky because my mom left me a little money so that I could be an artist. So I'm very careful with money, and I've managed to survive. But I'm hoping to get some writing work that pays this year, because it may be a really rough year ahead as we all.
Yes, definitely.
Okay. All right, so.
Who's us? Oh, wait, no, this way. Yeah.
All right, signing off.